I don't know where I am. They've taken all that I had, smuggled in for a lucrative trade, beaten, bartered, broken in until I obey. I used to be childlike, innocent and safe, but now I'm someone else's treasure, a stranger's pleasure, smothered in shame. So come with drugs, but I'm not numb. All I feel is pain. Is this all a dream? Will I ever be the same? Can anyone hear me? Will anyone break these chains? Who will free me? I'm just a beautiful slave. My worst fear is my fate. I'm getting older each day. Every girl too old in years mysteriously just disappears.
In '05, Kansas had on the books we had a human trafficking law on the books, and we've only had it since '05. So in the history of the law, I don't think that's a very old crime at all. It came from the feds, from the Trafficking Victims and Protection Act that was passed only in 2000. I don't think that's a very old law at all.
That's when they first started to recognize.
So, think of United States level of federal government. In 2000, then Senator Sam Brownback and Senator Paul Wellstone, far right, far left, and Senator Wellstone was killed in a plane accident. Does this kind of ringing any bells with you?
Oh, yeah.
So the feds passed that law in 2000, but it was really primarily aimed at international victims, and there was good money in there that went into some of these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations like Polaris and Shared Hope. And so as time went on, the state saw that it was completely inadequate to address domestic victims of trafficking. So it's like so many other things, let's get a push to the states to pass similar laws, state law, that mimic the federal law. And so we did. In '05, we got it on the books. That's trafficking. We didn't do anything to our regular old prostitution statutes and the old contact sex offenses for children. Love the human trafficking law that we had because it has that broad language borrowed from the feds: recruiting, harboring, transporting a person under the age of 18 for the sexual gratification of another. That broad language is so helpful because it does not require an exchange of value.
They never mention her name. They take away piece by piece. I don't think I have any left. I've slowly given up all hope, given into this sleepless bed. Inside these bars I feel so seared by each new face. How could this ever be? Every memory be erased? Can anyone hear me?
So as to the crimes, Shared Hope, Polaris, and others were saying you need to specifically carve out a specific crime when there's commercial sexual exploitation of a child. You need it to be directly for that, and it needs to be much, much tougher kinds of crime than you see in the prostitution statutes or that you see in some of these other ancillary things. And so that was the starting point, was to take both for the buyers of sex and the promoters of selling sex, and put them under a crime that was very much about the broad base of all the different kinds of commercial sexual exploitation, so whether it be stripping, commercial pornography, prostitution, and then with regard to those activities, anything that contributes to it. So recruiting someone for that, going on the internet, playing internet Xbox with them and saying, you know, let's get together, taking the initial steps of recruiting, with attempting to recruit, even though the girl says buzz off. Recruiting and attempting to recruit are a crime in and of themselves. So making all the facets, so harboring, transporting someone, being the lookout, doing some money laundering connected with it, whatever is connected to the crime. But then it takes from the prostitution statutes as well, this idea, these things tend to happen at hotels or other places, houses of prostitution, if you will. And so anybody who owns or manages or is aware that a place is being used for these activities for a minor is equally guilty of that same crime. So it was create a crime that relates to kids under 18, but make it very, very broad, covering all the facets, and make it a much tougher penalty than what the original prostitution statutes were. So that was the new crime that got created. That has been used for 3 adult outreach centers at domestic violence shelters, where we've hired like 3 people, and one's in one's in Winfield, one's in Lawrence, and one's here in Topeka. And their job is to reach out to the community, help promote public awareness, but also then serve as a source of getting services for adult victims, be a coordinator for that. So the AG has that. One of your questions was, what's the Victim Assistance Fund? Yes, the money is being sent there to do that. We also are giving a grant to youth, and we would like to give grants to CACs. We'd like to give much broader. The request for grants, because this is all just brand new, only got a couple of requests. Most people didn't put in.
To law enforcement, if you think about asset forfeiture for drug crimes, they get the drugs, they get the guns, they get all that other stuff. That is very helpful to law enforcement. If we could get law enforcement to sort of capture that same model with respect to what comes out of HT crimes, that would be great.
So that's the training that needs to, the hands-on investigation training really is much better done law enforcement to law enforcement. The Attorney General's office can get the word out. There's new duties, there's some new laws, there's some new things that are happening here across the state. But we haven't, the training module of real investigation and interrogation is really going on within police departments. The rapid response again has that training issue. For them to show up and make an analysis on these kids, or whether they should go to staff secure or not, it's the kids are in the custody of the police till there's a court order. So, again, it's a policy issue of how best to handle initial safety placement. We've put it in the hands of the police, but DCF is involved, and their role is still somewhat undefined and unclear. They are contacted because the law says you got to, but what exactly they're doing at that point, and to tell you the truth, in Wichita, they've been very good. They work with Ann Ellis and Mike Nagy. They sit behind a glass window as the kid is interviewed. It's Vicki MacArthur is the rapid response person in Wichita, and they're very good because then they support. If Mike or Kent Bauman or whatever think the kid needs to go to staff secure, Vicki signs off on it,
Okay.
and et cetera. But elsewhere, where they've had fewer cases, where they're very unfamiliar, it's a very undefined role at this point.
I'm just a beautiful slave.
But hope to provide more trainings, that more more kinds of information and materials that are useful. But really, law enforcement talking to officer to officer.
I don't know where I am. They've taken all that I had, smuggled in for a lucrative trade, beaten, bartered, broken in until I obey. I used to be childlike, innocent and safe, but now I'm someone else's treasure, a stranger's pleasure, smothered in shame. So come with drugs, but I'm not numb. All I feel is pain. Is this all a dream? Will I ever be the same? Can anyone hear me? Will anyone break these chains? Who will free me? I'm just a beautiful slave. My worst fear is my fate. I'm getting older each day. Every girl too old in years mysteriously just disappears. They never mention her name. They take away piece by piece. I don't think I have any left. I've slowly given up all hope, given into this sleepless bed.